All right, so we got an interesting little nugget here to share with you guys. Now, granted, this is not the best source, but I don't know. You guys tell me. Do you think this is legit or no? This is in the Daily Mail. They say Barack Obama, quote, thinks Joe Biden could lose the White House next year, with president's polls continuing to tank as worries over his age and cost of living crisis persist. Obama is concerned about Joe Biden's prospects for next year's election and feels the Democrats very well could lose, according to a report, with Donald Trump edging ahead in polls and concerns about the president's age, immigration, Israel policy, and economic plan denting confidence. A person described by the Wall Street Journal. Okay, so apparently it was not the Daily Mail that originally reported this. It was the Wall Street Journal. The Wall Street Journal, as being familiar with Obama's thinking, said the former president was troubled. Trump leads by 2 points in the Real Clear Politics polling average. So right off the bat, I'll say the fact is from the Wall Street Journal and not from the Daily Mail is gives it more credibility, I think. That it's because the Wall Street Journal, even though their opinion page is totally psycho and far right wing, their reporting is usually totally straight reporting. Obama, quote, knows this is going to be a close race, which, by the way, how embarrassing is that when you're up against a guy who has 91 criminal charges and it's like, bro, we know it's going to be tight. But it shouldn't be. That's the point. The fact that you can't easily defeat somebody like Trump really says a lot about you. Obama knows it's going to be a close race and feels that Democrats very well could lose the 2024 election. Obama worries that the alternative is pretty dangerous for democracy. A new Reuters Ipsos poll this week, like many other polls over the past month, found Donald Trump in the lead. Even more worrisome for Democrats, the poll shows independent candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. takes votes away from Biden, and 60% of voters say they want another option when it comes to the 2024 presidential race. But the looming election rematch next year between Biden and Trump would be closely fought, with both candidates saddled with profound vulnerabilities that could cost them the White House. I now think for sure this report is real. At first I wasn't sure. Now that it's from the Wall Street Journal. It was not originally from the Daily Mail. I have confidence in the report, but it's not surprising. It's just surprising that he's saying it out loud to people around him, which tells me there is an extra sense of urgency. Like, I don't think he would say it out loud to people around him if there wasn't a real impending sense of doom. And it's actually not surprising in a certain sense, right? Because Barack Obama knows how to read a poll. Now, there's been a lot of people bringing up, well, Obama was down to Romney at this point before the election. But here's the problem with that. Obama's lowest was 42% approval rating. What's Biden at? Well, in one recent poll, brand new poll from Pew, he's at 33% approval rating, almost 10 points lower. A full 9 points lower than where Obama was when he was down to Mitt Romney. So look, At this point, I truly believe the only hope for Biden is that there is some sort of a massive disconnect between the people who will say to a pollster, I approve of the job he's doing, and the people who will vote for him, which is not something you really want to hang your hat on going into an election where you have a complete rank authoritarian on the other side. 91 criminal charges against Trump. He's talking about invoking the Insurrection Act on day one. He talked about suspending the Constitution. He's running on retribution for his political opponents. Like, you don't want to roll the dice with hardcore authoritarianism like this with a totally weak candidate like Biden. But his only hope, apart from the obvious, which is like stop arming Israel as they kill massive numbers of Palestinian civilians, do something for the American people, like extend the child tax credit or something like that to help out economically. He should obviously do those policy things to try to change the reality. But even if he does that, at this point, he really has to hope that even though only 33% of the country approves of the job he's doing, people will still say, you know what, when push comes to shove, I'd rather have the really old guy than the guy with 91 criminal charges against him. But here's the other point that needs to be made that nobody in mainstream media will make. It shouldn't be a foregone conclusion that it's gonna be Joe Biden. Because you do have Marianne Williamson running against Biden, was at 14% in a recent poll. That's nothing to write home about, but it's better than almost anybody else, even on the Republican side, running against Trump. You have Marianne Williamson at 14%. Dean Phillips is maybe around like 5% or so. He's the centrist opponent. And then you have Cenk Uygur, who's going through some court cases to figure out if he can be on the ballot because he's not a natural-born citizen, but he's running as well. Like, and I don't know. Look, if Obama was smart and if he really felt like, no, Trump is an existential threat, it should be Barack Obama, it should be Bill Clinton, it should be Hillary Clinton, it should be all of the top heavy hitters in the Democratic Party. Chuck Schumer, like all these people, we need to get into a room right now with Joe Biden and be like, you got to step aside, bro. Because at least at that point, then it really opens up the Democratic race where you get everybody jumps in. All the Democratic governors who want to be, they all jump in, and then you have a very detailed and extensive primary where you could actually give people a choice. And by the way, in that scenario, then I favor the Democrats much more for the general election. But short of that, oh man, I think best case scenario for Biden is he's looking at 50-50, but right now I have it 60-40 that Trump could beat him. And by the way, in a crazy scenario where somehow Nikki Haley or some other Republican pulls a rabbit out of a hat and beats Trump, in that scenario, then they're almost certainly going to beat the Democrats. They're almost certainly going to be Biden. Every poll has said Nikki Haley up like 15 points on Biden in a general election. So, look, the fact that Obama is acknowledging it tells me there are really no more outs for the resistance liberal types, for the super pro-Biden types. There are no more like, no, I actually don't think he's down types of. You can't, that's not an argument you can make. If Biden is willing to admit it, or excuse me, if Obama is willing to admit it about Biden, then how could there be anybody left? How can there be anybody left? Again, the final point I'll make is this. You are up against a guy with 91 criminal charges, right? And that counts for something. That's a big deal. But still, Biden's best hope is that there is a massive disconnect. Like 33% of the country says, I approve of how he's doing. But still, come election day, it's like he has way more people who will vote for him just to be anti-Trump. That's their best bet. And I think that's what the Democrats are betting on. But man, that's a risky game they're playing, man. That is a risky, risky game they're playing. I mean, I know it's not a very popular thought, but I told you guys after I watched that DeSantis versus Newsom debate, I was like, Jesus, I really wish it was these two guys. Not for any policy-related reason. They're both very standard scummy politicians who would sell out the country in an instant and already have sold out their states, right? Like, so I'm not saying they're the answer. I'm just saying that it feels like much less of an existential moment for the country than Biden versus Trump. Biden's half dead. Trump is a criminal and a fascist. And it's like, even with how bad Newsom and DeSantis are, we all know they are much more standard politicians. Now, standard politicians aren't good, but it's better than the potential end of the country and the destruction of the peaceful transfer of power. And I think that part is inarguable, even though it's not a very popular take I'm making. But if even Obama's admitting it, woo boy, the Democrats are in trouble. And look, I'll continue to follow the polls day in and day out. If it changes, I'll be here to tell you, but this is what I see at the moment. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.